Okay, it's Friday, October 28th, and this is a pre-opening SPY report, about an hour and a half to go before trading. And at the moment, after yesterday's two down, small red bar, we do have a pre-market range that's a little lower at the moment. And I'll explain, why this is a little bit tricky in terms of what to expect today. If we open up somewhere down in here, it looks like we're fulfilling at least the target of this shooter bar, that to broaden out lower on this bar, and this is closer and enough here where we might be taking out that bar. Or if you really look closely between these two bars, there's a little bit of a gap in here to kind of come down and fill some inefficiencies. And what I mean by that is when you see these little gaps, this one's not as pronounced as some other ones between the high of this bar and the low of this bar. There's a little gap in here. You can go on the 15-minute chart and see this kind of a straight up move that led to that. So there's some inefficient pricing in here. And when you see that with these gaps, price generally comes down to fill in that inefficiency. And that's really all it may be doing at the moment. And that's why things are tricky in terms of, we're really going to get follow through to the downside, even though we're a bit in the down mode at the moment, or today being the end of the week and the end of the month, or near the end of the month, 2 more days to go. Are you really expecting any upside? Which I'm not. So in other words, it's a tricky environment. The upside today, obviously, if we open down here, can only take place if we fail in some form, start up early in the session, and then fail to take out the lows, or take out the lows and then fail, and then come up to the 50% of this bar. That would be the signal that we could be getting a big update today. But other than that, I'm not going to expect anything to the upside. So we're going to watch the midpoint of yesterday for that. And then in terms of the downside, if all we're doing is filling out maybe a fair value gap in here with some inefficient pricing, I don't know how much lower it can necessarily go. So with that in mind, we'll do what we always do and kind of trade the opening price action relative to the pre-market, and just not have a strong bias either up or down. Some of the interesting things to look at as we end the week here, if you can sense that we're going to close lower today on Friday, and this bar is a very big looking shooter bar, then I guess you can anticipate at least testing lower into next week, kind of like on this bar yesterday, 2 days ago, when it closed with the shooter bar. You could have, let's just say you wanted to aggressively get short and just sense that we were going to fill in down here no matter what happened choppiness wise intraday. You could have done that. So if we get that kind of close today, then maybe you can be aggressive and expect a little follow through lower into next week. The thing is that you really don't know. Let's say you get a 2 down here. I don't see this as an obvious target to hit these next lows. So in other words, it's definitely something to get short and kind of see how much we eat into this green bar. But an interesting trade would be if we get a 2 down week next week and we can't take out that target and then get like a 2 up week into November. That would be really a good trade to now begin to take out these 2 highs. So, these are the little things you kind of think ahead about. And right now, again, I don't really see anything today that's so obvious as to where price is going, but I could see things developing within this weekly chart that might be interesting as time goes on. But nevertheless, if we get a shooter bar, I'll still look for a little pullback into this green bar. And again, there's a little fair value gap in here on the weekly chart. You can see between this high and this low. So maybe we pull back right in here, and if the whole week next week, I'm just throwing out a scenario, if we get it down, close here, and we start lower next week, and you can't reach this target, and you're just filling in this gap, and then you get some kind of a 2 up daily bar, then I get excited to get long again into November, to take out these highs again. And at that point, then you got to deal with this bar. So we'll get into all that, as time goes on. Again, 2 days to go in the month. I'm looking at a bar that's, trying to be green, for this month. We took out the lows and started up. We stayed above the open, which is this green line for most of the month. So that's why we were biased to the upside on a lot of days. But I don't necessarily see this as a reversal bar yet to go into November. It could happen. Well, like I said, maybe we'll get that weekly kind of bar that, let's say the month closes kind of right around here, where then I want to see follow through to the upside to really confirm that the trend might be changing to the upside. And that might be one of those weekly failures to the downside that starts up, and then you take out, you get a 2 up month, and then that leads to something into November, that starts heading up here, but that would take a while to form. So in other words, I'm not seeing, it's definitely a green bar, but you want to see follow through from this to really confirm that anything is real in terms of the big picture, which has been down for a while. So with all that said, let's just see how things open. Again, pre-market range at the moment is lower, but it bounced a little bit from its as low as it's been. We're we're kind of bouncing around. So we're just going to have to maybe day trade this one today. Again, a little lower would sort of, even though we filled it, at the first move of the session, of the overnight action to the downside, we might be heading down there just temporarily, intraday to take out those stops, and that might be it. So, you want to, if we do have some kind of sell signal, watch for follow through at this point or not, to see if this might end up being a big red day to the downside. Well, tomorrow, this type of day to the downside. You can't predict that as of yet, so be careful. If you go short, just know that this may be taking out stops, and that might be it, and we might reverse. And then, if we go to the upside again, until we really get above the midpoint of yesterday, I can't get excited about that. So kind of a neutral day, neutral expectations, but let's just see what happens.